Welcome back to Range Anxiety TV, your most favoritist YouTube channel. And as you can see today, I'm going solo. There is no big Paul, so I'll do it for him. Hey Marty, hey world, hey babe. Interesting before we get into today's topic, which is obviously to do with the Nissan GTR. I did get a viewer email us and say, I need to make up new names for you after the truck episode. And for some reason, he described Paul as the Dud. So that's your new nickname, Paul, the Dud. And I said, why not the Dude? Well, that's already taken by Paul Morris, who is a lot cooler than Paul Howson. So today, GTRs. You might think if you've watched this show enough that we know a little bit about GTRs, and I'm possibly not the biggest fan, but that's where you'd be wrong. You see, I go back, these were my bread and butter, and I go back to the era where, yeah, I'm old, but I was lucky enough, and am still lucky enough, to remember a time when these cars were brand new on the showroom floor. I had several mates that bought these brand new. How can that be? The R33 was never delivered in Australia, but there were some importers bringing them in the late 90s with less than 500 kilometres on the clock from new. So yeah, I do know two people. One of them is my business partner, John Munro, who bought one brand new, and another one is another close personal friend. But the first time I laid eyes on a new GTR was an R32 GTR, and it was, I was at the Adelaide Grand Prix, I reckon, and there was one parked. There was a hairdresser that owned one that was parked outside one of the local pubs in Rundle Street. And I remember looking at it thinking, this, wow, you know, it's a cool car, but what an awkward looking car. It looked narrow, it looked high, and it looked very angular. So yeah, it wasn't something that was beautiful, but my God, what a technical thing they were. Most of the smarts, like the Atessa four-wheel drive system, was copied from an idea that Porsche had in the 959 and then finessed by the Japanese to make it ultimately a better thing. I mean, the car's dominance on the racetrack was just in Group A racing was so good that they had to change the sport entirely. Do I still own GTRs? No. Am I sorry about that? No. I'll get onto that in a minute. There's no slur on the car. What have I owned? I think I've owned two R32 GTRs and 4 or 5 R35 GTRs. Never a 33, never a 34. I did own a 33 GT Atmo 4-door that I converted into a GTR, a 4-door GTR with an auto trans, which was pretty cool, with an RB26 in it. But my favourite GTR, weirdly enough, is the one I never owned, which is the R33 GTR. People go, oh, they're no good, they're the whale, they're a boat, they're big, they're fat. Sounds a bit like me, other than the big part. And they're no good. But you know what? Technically, in my opinion, they are the best of the GTRs. And for a limited run model like this is one of the best of the R33s. This is an R33 GTR LM, very limited edition model. There were sort of like 400Rs and LM GTs and stuff like that. This is the normal road going LM. They still only made, I think, 180, or, you know, Nissan's numbers are not really that accurate on them. But what a wicked car, but it's the only one that came in what they call Champion Blue. It was designed to celebrate the Nissan LM, was it LM1? No, LM GT1 Le Mans car, because at this point Nissan didn't race Group C anymore, so they went straight to GT1, and this was the tribute road car to their actual Le Mans car at the time. I think I've got that right. Not a lot of differences to the normal road car. It had the N1 front little aero thing on it, had a carbon rear wing, had bigger cooling ducts for the brake air entries, just little things. But the big thing was the Champion Blue colour. The only one that came in this colour, and it's amazing. The colour is amazing even to this day, and I'm surprised more manufacturers don't use this kind of blue. And being blue, it makes it a natural to the PowerTech Tuning blue car stable. If you know us, you will know that it's all about blue. But yeah, what a car. RB26, the venerable engine that you know, breaks a lot of hearts, breaks a lot of parts, but still goes pretty fast when done right. Slightly stronger gearbox in the R33 with better synchros than the 32, and the very cool active rear differential that has side-to-side yaw control, which actually from this 1996 car is more advanced than the rear differential in this 2017 car. My mum always tells me off for saying 2000, and it's 2017, not 2017. Martin, do you say 1854 is the year 1854? No, I don't, Mum. Sorry about that. So yeah, a bit more smarts in this car, in the rear end than that car. And in the day, it was actually quite technical and quite groundbreaking, whereas the driveline in this is just gear braking and, you know, has a normal mechanical rear diff and a normal open wheel front diff. This also has a normal open wheel front diff. But one thing before we jump into GTRs, why don't I own them anymore? And I said I'm not sad about it. GTRs are like fine red wine. Store them, have them, line them up in your cellar, but you only get the pleasure out of them when you drink them and use them. There's no point in having them there and not using them, and moving them on's all part of using them. You know, the bottle was empty, toss it out. That's where you get your real enjoyment from them. They were actually, in the day, quite a good daily driver and not something that you had to hide. You know, in the wet, they were great. In the hot, they were great. They had great air conditioning systems. You could take them to a track day. They were just great. So let's have a look at what makes this thing tick. And let's have a look under the hood. And like I said earlier, we've got that beautiful Nissan RB26, straight six, 2.6 litre, on paper, a really good engine, like 4 valve per cylinder, overhead cam, twin turbochargers with none of the sequential junk on it. Just a simple boost control system, quite a good ECU, 6 throttle bodies. You know, it is technically on specification, quite a nice engine, but don't believe everything you hear about them. There is so much. I think Nissan GTR fanboys are probably worse than Tesla fanboys, and that's saying something. At least, you know, most of the Tesla fanboys in their yoga pants with their, you know, funny haircuts and man buns, at least they own the cars. Most people, the only thing they know about these is what they've seen on video games or read or watched on other channels. And a lot of it's bullshit, just for clicks. These mechanical combinations in standard form had very few issues. Wound up, they have problem after problem, like, guess what? Any car at all. The early ones, for example, in the R32s, had really poor oil pump drives, really narrow, and they used to break and lose oil pressure. R33 fixed that with a like snout upgrade on the crankshaft so that they drove the oil pump properly. In higher boost applications, they have terrible oiling issues. They pump all of the oil up into the cylinder head and can't drain it back properly. And again, there are aftermarket fixes for that. But again, you won't make a standard engine last long at higher boost without modification, of course. Numerous little problems like that. What else really goes wrong with them? Oil drain back, real issue. Breathing, high breathing rates. You know, keeping the oil inside, because they pump a lot up into the top end, keeping the oil inside and under here and not out the breathers is really difficult to do. So one of the most common things you see as a modification on any RB26 GTR is a catch can or a catch tank, as we've got here. And most of them kind of work after a bit. Not many of them are well thought out for high performance work, actually. It's not unusual to go to a track day and see modified GTRs spraying oil and various other engine fluids everywhere because they're poorly modified and poorly thought out. Done right, they're amazing. Over time, they tend to crack the blocks as well. Whether it's a harmonic thing, a design thing, or a material thing, they will crack the blocks and the oil and coolant mix, and, you know, that milkshake brings all the mechanics to the yard because you've got to replace a block. You know, there are billet blocks around for them now. You know, we've been involved with one of them. We've got a car with a billet block that was developed here in South Australia. There you go, Chris, from Crest CNC. There's the little plug for you, my friend. But there isn't a lot of perfection here, but there is a good solid base to make power from reliably if you know what you're doing. And of course, there is great aftermarket part support. Now, this engine bay is not original. Most GTRs of this era have had a lot of modification over the years, and this one is no different. This one has some really nice forged pistons, some upgraded conrods, turbos. It has little Apexi, I reckon they're RX5s on it, not the Mazda type. I think they're called an RX5. They're the little like bolt-on GTSS, equivalent. It's got some intakes on it. It's got a piping kit. It's got a polished plenum. It's got all that stuff, HKS twin power to try and multi-spark or beef up the ignition strength. It's, again, when they got old, the coil packs got weak. You needed something there. It's got a hot earth kit from the Japanese, a split fire company. And an upgraded rad, upgraded ARC intercooler, all that sort of thing. I don't think that takes away a lot from the value of the car or the background of the car. It still is a really good thing. And some light mods like that, it's like a 911, like an old Porsche 911. Good mods don't detract from them. A little bit of hot rodding is pretty cool, providing it's done well and not by imbeciles with no idea. Managing this one, it's very old school retro. It's got an Apexi Power FC ECU, which I've had to tune. It's great, that little like Game Boy controller. It's a cool thing. So yeah, these cars are cool. They're meant to be driven, but they aren't the ultimate of everything. No car is the ultimate of everything. What they are is a really good base and really good fun and a real statement of the time. They're not a modern supercar beater. They're not a modern car beater in any way. But what they are is like, hey, how crazy were we in the late 80s and 90s? And this is one of the craziest cars you could get, and one of the cars that brought the Japanese to the front. So I hope you like my unbiased look at... Oh, actually, hang on. John was complaining of a bit of understeer. There you go, mate. All fixed. I better put that back in case it puts him in the fence. He won't be too happy with me. There you go. There's my unbiased view. If you would like to see more on early R32, R33, R34 GTRs, I'm happy to go through it with you. You'll just have to drop us something in the comments. And if you've got any specific questions, we've got engines in bits, we've got build-ups, we've got race versions, we got everything here. If you want to know more and you like the way we talk about them without the fanboyism, then please drop us a line and we'll talk to you more. But thank you once again. This is only a shorty, but it's a real hot topic and it's a real good car. Thank you once more for listening and watching Range Anxiety.